what's like the process, somebody who consults with you, what's that look like generally?
Right. So for whatever reason, I almost always am representing the plaintiff or the initiator of the divorce. They might not end up being the actual plaintiff, but they're kind of taking the first step. And I don't know why that is, but that's just happens to be how it is. And so they're coming to me, and they sometimes have not shared with their spouse that they're thinking about separating or divorcing, and sometimes they have. And really the first meeting is giving them some of the general principles of matrimonial law, what to expect, not only from a substantive perspective, how are things going to be split up? What is my time with my kids going to look like? But also from a procedural perspective. They always want to know, how long is this going to take? What's the process going to be like? And explaining to them the different paths, which when I first started practicing, there was really one path, and it was court. With the court system adopting the alternative resolution program, and there being a big push towards mediation and ADR, that's changed. When I first started practicing, it was RJI right into court, and now there's a lot of mediation going on, a lot of uncontested divorce. And so there are different paths.
Uncontested means?
Uncontested means we're not involving a judge for anything other than to sign the judgment of divorce at the end. They've agreed on how they're going to divide things. They've agreed on how they're going to share time with the kids, and they just need the attorney to guide them through getting that paperwork drafted and filed with the court.
What are some tips, being a divorce attorney, that you would give someone when they're either looking for an attorney to possibly, at least even just to have a consultation to see what their rights are?
Yeah, I guess my best tip that I would give is there's a lot of attorneys in town, and meet with as many people as you need to find someone that you really click with. It is not a fast process. Even the most amicable couples who are uncontested, it's probably a 3-month process, to be realistic. And I would say the average contested divorce can be around a year. So you're going to be having communication with me, meetings with me, sometimes on a daily basis, if not a weekly basis, and you have to be really comfortable with that person. You're going to be sharing intimate details about your marriage, about your family, and making sure that that's a good fit. I would say don't feel like you have to rush into the process. Shop around.
Are there?
So some of the common, I have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Some of the common questions that people ask you, what are questions, kind of the next level down that you hear over and over again that maybe some of the people that are listening would be curious about?
Yeah, and I get the same questions so often that I put a blog on my website where I answer those questions, and I try to tell people to go there and read about it, because you're not the first person to ask this question.
What's your website too, while we're talking?
BatesFamilyLaw.com. And I think a very common question I get is it abandonment if I leave the house? Can I leave the house? And what I tell people is, yes, and actually the law, people think if they move out during the divorce process, they're going to waive their rights to their house or their time with their kids. And the law protects people. The people that make the laws, they don't want people living in the same house who are fighting in front of the kids, where there's domestic violence occurring. So there are ways to leave the house, and you should leave the house if you're in a situation where the cops are being called, or there's domestic violence occurring, or the kids are being exposed to constant turmoil. So abandonment is a kind of an old grounds for filing for divorce. Before no-fault divorce was passed in New York, now most cases are filed on no-fault grounds. Abandonment is a totally separate legal definition and a grounds to get divorced that just moving out and getting an apartment in town is not gonna,
like, if someone ran away, left, if you didn't know where he was.
Yeah, so it's someone leaves the marriage, they take off, you have no way to find them, they're gone for an extended period of time and having absolutely no contact with you. That's not gonna happen in your typical divorce situation where someone's moving out, they're getting an apartment around the corner, they're seeing the kids a few nights a week, you're still communicating, you're paying, making sure bills are paid. There's gonna be, with normal co-parents or divorcing spouses, there's gonna be a regular contact. It's not gonna be an abandonment situation. So, I never want someone to stay in the house who feels unsafe.
What are some grounds for divorce?
So there's 7 in New York State, and it used to be that you needed a ground such as abandonment, cruel and inhuman treatment, adultery, in order to get divorced in New York State, or you had to get a legal separation and stay legally separated for an entire year. New York did not want people getting divorced because that causes all sorts of other issues. Finally, New York State passed no-fault divorce. We were the last of all 50 states to pass it. And finally, they said, the seventh ground for divorce is now what we divorce attorneys call no-fault divorce. But basically what the statute says is for a period of 6 months or more, we've had irreconcilable differences. And it's not a ground that the other side can contest. So if you allege Domestic Relations Law 177, irreconcilable differences, the other side can't really fight it, and it's what we call a no-fault divorce. So think of it like a car accident. You guys deal with a lot of car accident cases. Someone's always at fault, right? But the insurance companies have said, for whatever reason in certain situations, it's not worth figuring out who did it, who's at fault. So it's kind of like that in the divorce.
Coverage for the,
exactly.
We have to get the medical bills paid,
Right.
and that's included as part of the policy.
From a liability perspective, obviously there's certain parts of accidents where liability and who's at fault matters. And there are certain parts of divorce cases where liability matters. For example, if you were a bad father or bad husband or a bad mother, that could impact your custodial rights. But for purposes of the grounds for getting divorced, the bad behavior doesn't necessarily matter anymore.